Thank you so much for joining us on our second webinar for Mindgrove. I'm Cindy Grabowski. I'm the founder and chief pathfinder for Mindgrove. I'm honored to be here today. I want to thank you guys for registering, leaning in on something new, which is important to us. And I stand here proud to share that I represent 39 consultants that come together. We're SMEs in instructional design or e-learning for the adult learner and the MedTech medical device manufacturing industry. So thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, I would like to tell you what is Mindgrove. We're still coming out, as we say, or making ourselves known in the industry. And what we want you to know is we have come together, we'll be a year on July 25th. Have been in business for a year. And what we're building is something that we wish would have been there when we were coming up in the medical device industry. And we're focusing on 6 career pathways: quality, regulatory, clinical, data management, reimbursement, and marketing. We're super excited about building skills-based training, first of its kind, where we're going to teach people competencies. How do we begin to train, take off the plate of everybody that in MedTech? How do we take off the plate of the company the hands-on training? And because oftentimes what happens when you're working for a MedTech company, you come in and you get trained on what is due now. And it takes years for you to experience different sections of that. Mindgrove will become the partner to all MedTech companies. And our program is built on 2 pillars. One is cross-functional training. We teach you what all of your cross-functional partners do so that you learn to collaborate early and often, and you understand what everybody you know in the company does. And so when you jump into a new company or you're working in a company and you go into a meeting and somebody says, "Hey, I work in reimbursement," you're like, "I got you. I know what you do in your space and what your roles and responsibilities are. And I know how my work affects you and your work affects me." Important, and it's super important for business acumen for you to understand that. The next piece is skills-based training. So we do it at 3 levels: foundational, intermediate, and advanced. And what we're certifying, getting you certified in with continuing education units, is certifying you on all of the competencies or skills or tasks that you're going to need to do. For foundational, it's 0 to 3 years. Intermediate is 4 to 7 years. And the advanced is 8 or more years. So we're breaking into 3 pieces. We say, come get well-rounded, get a good base, understand the work. Even if you're not doing it today in your role, that's when it's even more important. Because a lot of folks in our development, we sit around waiting for that next opportunity to become more well-rounded. We want to be the place you come to be well-rounded. So our goal and our mission is to become the partner for all medical device manufacturing companies globally. Our program is starting out in the first 3 years of US based only, in the sense of what's the processes within the US. Then we will be expanding past that. But within the US base, there's a ton of information out there. And if you're a outside the US company that wants to understand how the US runs clinical studies and manufactures device in the product life cycle here, this is a great program for you as well. So thank you. Check out Mindgrove at mindgrove.com. We've got a whole bunch of webinars. I will tell you that we are introducing this webinar series to build a community. And our goal behind the webinar series is, for our 6 career pathways that we're introducing, we want to have 1 webinar, maybe 2 next year, but 1 this year per pathway. So within Mindgrove, our 39 consultants, we have a subject matter expert that heads up each of the 6 pathways, with other individuals, consulting individuals below them, to make sure you get a well-rounded experience and storytelling. But each of those SMEs have helped and introduce us to other leaders in the industry, those that are consultants that see a lot, that guide companies today within their own consulting business and have their finger on the pulse of what's going on today. We want the webinar series to introduce you to experts that could be on your speed dial that you could reach out to and add to your Rolodex of your bat phone. I've got a long list of bat phone people, but like today, you're going to meet Glenn. He's now in my bat phone. He's phenomenal. I really like his approach to things, and he challenges me to think about things a little differently and make them very clear for me. So I'm super excited to have him here. With housekeeping, first one, you'll notice the chat is disabled within the webinar today. And what we have is Q&A. So if you enter in your questions, you have questions as we go along, enter in your questions in the Q&A. I may read them as we're going back and forth with Glenn and I. If I don't, I will hold them to the end. His presentation is about 30 minutes. And then if we have extra time at the end, we'll go through the Q&A. If we don't get to your question, we will respond back to you in writing afterwards in a follow-up. Also, you'll get, once this webinar is done today, you'll get an email by the end of today with a link to the video recording for this, as well as the free giveaway, the downloadable resource that Glenn has provided us today. So without further ado, let me introduce Glenn. And I want to say he's helped me. I think it's Schmelzle, and he's going to correct me if I'm wrong. But let me read what Glenn's bio says. Glenn helps shape organizations' growth strategies by using data access, opportunities, and drive their execution. For the past year, he has been helping healthcare startups at Core Innovation, a hospital-embedded accelerator. Love this idea. From 2013 to 2023, he ran Marketing What's New and digital marketing analytics agency concentrated on the MedTech vertical. He is also a part-time business professor and freely shares his insights and knowledge via his long-running podcast, Funnel Reboot. So I have gone on to Spotify and I'm following him on that as well. So welcome, Glenn. Thank you so much for being here. Sure, he's there. Where is Glenn? He's coming. Here he comes. Hi, Glenn.
Hello, Cindy, and thank you to you, and thank you to Mindgrow for this opportunity to talk.
I'm so excited that you're here. So thank you to Laurel. Laurel Burke is our marketing SME for our marketing pathway. And when I said I needed an expert in somebody that was engaging, had their finger on the pulse, that has really a voice that's unique in the industry, I said, who do I talk to? And she goes, ooh, this one's easy. It's Glenn. Wait till you meet Glenn. And we got on the phone and it was fast friends. We're like, yep, I dig him. He is exactly what we're looking for. So I can't wait to hear what you have to share today.
Neither can I, and I'm really excited. So how about we, without any further ado, we jump right into it, okay?
Perfect.
All right, so I'm just going to get my slides up, and here we go. All right, you should be able to see my title slide. Amazing.
You're good.
All right, so yes, as Cindy introduced me, my name is Glenn Schmelzle, and I do a variety of things, but what I am truly passionate about is helping people who are on their journey as marketers learn how to master the more difficult, the more nuanced industries in which one can market. And healthcare is probably at the top of the list on that scale. But I'm going to take you through some things today that I hope you will find that break it down and make it more bite-sized. So without further ado, I got to get it through a disclosure slide. If we need to stay any conflict of interest. I'm so happy to say though, there's none here. I have no affiliation with the products being discussed. I have no affiliation with Mindgrowth. I'm simply here to share the great things that I've learned from other healthcare marketers. So why don't we get on with the presentation? Does that sound good to you, Cindy?
Oh, right on. I'm excited.
Okay, so let's first do a quick agenda. What we're going to talk about. We're going to begin with a big question. It's the most common question that anybody who has taken marketing in school or has marketed in other fields or is working in healthcare and takes that lateral position where they're all of a sudden sitting in a marketing seat. We're going to tackle the big question that always comes up.
Mm.
And then we're going to kind of go through in answering that question how we can deal with it in marketing channels, the different channels that we're using to reach out to the different stakeholders that are in our marketplace. And when we do that, we're going to put information out. That means data is going to come back in. How do we analyze that data? How do we know if what we're doing is actually getting us somewhere? Where's the traction? What are we doing? What are we getting for those marketing dollars? And because it's not just about turning knobs and dials and pushing buttons, there are a lot of skills that a person needs to equip themselves with to be able to raise their marketing initiatives for their company. And I'll talk about then a recap of what we've learned, and I'll also tell you a little bit about the takeaway that we're providing to people who have joined this webinar that I prepared specially for this. And then we'll open it to questions.
Love it. I
Are we all
like
set
it.
to go?
Yes, we're ready to rock and roll.
That's great. Okay, so let's get to the big question. The big question is, how do you market in healthcare when you're limited, it seems, at every turn on what you can say about your product or service? Um, if we compared it to a typical consumer packaged good item, or we compared it to a person who comes and does home services, these people can just talk, they're unfettered in what they can say about what they provide, what its value is, the claims of how well it works. We don't get to do that in healthcare.
Yeah.
We have a lot of constraints that we must deal with. And this question sometimes is said in a way that makes it sound like you're admitting defeat. I've had many people say, I don't even know how to do this. Can it even be done?
Yeah.
And that's what I'd like us to help tackle today. I want to bust that myth. Of course, it can be done, but we have to approach it in a certain way. So let's begin with a couple of table stakes items that I think is fair for all of us to use in building our answer to the big question. We obviously live in an age where the web is the go-to place for solutions. And if we are a solution provider, product or service, we need to be there. So I'm beginning just saying we have to have a website, our own little piece of turf on the internet. Then we have little, I call them social properties, or think of them almost as embassies, right? They are your little outpost in a foreign land, be it Facebook, be it LinkedIn, or somewhere else. We need to have a presence in those places. And if we have those basic pieces in place, the rest of what I can tell you is going to be uh, straightforward. I'm not going to say it's easy, but straightforward and rather simple. We also have a couple of things that we can use to our benefit. First off, we need to talk about how we get information when we're doing marketing and when we're serving our patients or customers. Data is something that is created almost always in all forms. Okay, um, we are always creating data, and we may not even think of it. As a matter of fact, for most of, let's say, the 20th century, data was an afterthought. It was like the exhaust that comes out the back of a car. We didn't realize that we could actually capture and do some good with the data that we have. So let's now deal with what kinds of data there are. For any of you who've dealt on the internet or you've gone on a website and you have seen those little pop-ups at the beginning that ask you, do you consent to a cookie tracking you? You are you're moving into those different kinds of data. And there's basically first party and third party. Now,
Mm,
first party is just, Cindy, I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. We are sharing data, and
got
that is first party information. If Cindy tells me something about herself, I can use that information. She gave that to me.
it. Mm,
Same goes with patients.
mm,
However, if I am going behind the scenes on Facebook or some other social platform and I'm targeting Cindy,
okay.
and Facebook is telling me information about Cindy's interests or location, things like that, that's third party information. We must be very, very careful in a healthcare scenario with that information. So I'm going to encourage us to stick closer to that first party data, and that is a wonderful advantage for us because if you have patients that are happy with the um, outcomes, if you are dealing with physicians, right? So
Mm,
in non-customer facing situations, the
yeah,
physicians or the administrators who are using your productivity tool or med device, and they are telling you that they are happy with it, it's a good idea to maybe ask them afterwards, hey, that was amazing. Can I share this? Can I use this information? Yes. If they say yes, you are more than welcome to use that information. And you have places such as your website and
right.
such as those little social properties where you can put it. So we're already getting the ball rolling here. Now,
Love it.
we have to balance what we're doing, no matter what. In the coming slides, we'll talk about things we can do, but we do have to balance the fact that we in this industry must be compliant,
Mm,
and we have sometimes trade-offs where the results that we're going to get from our marketing
mm,
may not be what they would be in another industry because we have to take those steps for compliance. But I think that's a matter of setting expectations with our investors, with our bosses, sometimes with ourselves, right?
right.
Any questions so far?
No, this is great. It's super helpful. It's interesting because I come from a clinical background, so I know how we protect HIPAA. We're leaning into HIPAA very heavily on clinical. It's a great reminder for me that our marketing partners also have constraints around that and capturing data that isn't opted in per se. Got it. Love
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Opt in, you're talking right with the person who's giving you that permission. You're golden.
Got it.
All right, so I'm going to refer just a few times, maybe to help us all level set on an example of a company that needed to use to work within the constraints of healthcare marketing. So first, I'm going to speak about a condition just so that we can all relate to it. So gastroesophageal reflux disorder is a uh, very severe condition. At the easy end of it, people will call it acid reflux, but it's far worse than that. And it will manifest itself in anything from um, regular heartburn that people complain of to laryngitis, sinusitis, um, issues throughout their GI, and it can even lead to cardiac issues. So it's a very serious thing. It can immobilize patients. It can really mess up with their quality of life. Okay, so that's a simple patient audience that we have of 85 million Americans that need this. And what we're going to do as we talk through this is I'm going to point out there are things you can't do. You can't just, for example, walk up to people in a mall with a clipboard and say, do you have this condition? Great. step right here, get into this car, and I'm going to take you to a physician who's going to cure you. That's not
Wow.
right.
Okay.
Well, in a standard,
Yes.
let's say, you're talking outside of a perfumery, or you're talking outside of a, mobile phone provider, they
Right.
can walk up to you in the mall and they can ask you, okay, show me what you're currently using. I can beat that. I can do that. You can't have those conversations. This is private
Healthcare.
patient information.
Right.
Right? So the company that I will bring up that was trying to solve this problem was tackling the existing way of doing it, which was a very invasive form of internal surgery, which involved incisions and tried to create a new liner within the top of the stomach to give patients more time, give them a fresh set of esophageal tissue with which they could deal with this acid, because you can't make the acid go away. The company's name was Endogastric Solutions.
Okay.
They are still around. I have no affiliation with them, but they came up with a transoral way of doing this. So it's basically inserted through the throat and it does the entire procedure without opening someone up in their abdominal cavity. So it's pretty good solution. And you can
Yeah.
see just over here what the final
Result looks
result
like.
looks like.
Yeah.
So, so this is a transformative procedure. However, it's complicated, and we have a couple of different parties here. We have a hospital with
Mhm.
a physician. We have a patient. We have a reimbursement provider. We have a whole bunch of parties that you, the marketer, if you were working at a med device solution like this, that you have to orchestrate. And
Mm.
that's something we have to think about, because the first thing is, as I said, you can't use a marketing channel of, I'm going to go show up at the mall with a clipboard. What you can do is you can go on to platforms such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, there are others, and you can talk about patient experiences.
Mm.
You need to focus on having good quality content. And there's two flavors of this content. Number one, if you expect them to find you through a search engine, you need to have good content that you have placed on that web property that you own. And you can use all of those patient testimonials that I was talking about earlier, or physician testimonials, but you must try to get details. Um, Imagine that the more that you create inside of your website, that creates more of a target surface. You become a bigger target for that search engine to notice and say, ah, I have a person who, think of them like an arrow, and your website is a very big target with a lot, like I mean, dozens, if not hundreds of pages of content. Everything everybody would want to know about this condition. You may even, this is what Endogastric did, you may even split your websites, and
Oh,
you'll have a corporate website which
right.
talks to the physicians who need it, but you may have a separate website which only talks about the condition,
Mm.
and just as a tangent for those people who, have read and gotten information on this condition and what they can do about it, if those people are interested, you can then put something on that website that tells them how they can get action on this problem. But you're focusing, we call it content marketing. The content is the marketing. You're helping them, you're giving them information, and you may sometimes have to be at peace with the fact that giving them information is a higher goal than making sales. They
Wow, but
may,
that's gotta be
right?
a
Well,
right,
because you
yeah.
truly
Yeah,
want your customer to get that information.
educated, yeah,
And if they say, "Hey, thanks, happy trails, off I
yeah.
go," you have to say, "Well, we gave that person information. I'll come in a moment to why that is important." And the same is true on social media, But the good news for social media is you can lean even more heavily into what they say and less
Mm.
about what you say. And if they have a social presence, my goodness, get them to talk about you on social media. Get them to tag you. You'll then amplify their message by reposting it. But there, it's important because social platforms tie us together by the social connections we have. And that person, be it a buyer like a physician or a user like a patient, they have a lot of people they know. And when they talk about you, all the people that they know get to find out about you.
Mm. Right.
So that's why it's even more important that you let them, you give them tools with which they can talk about you. You don't worry so much about thumping your own chest.
I love this. Even the way you're describing it, I can think of corporate websites where they say physicians, patients, procedure, kind of drills down, whether that be a link that immediately gets them to within 2 clicks, they're at how do I build the story for myself and how I lean in best. It's
Yes.
interesting when you say social media because I can't wait to hear what you say about that. Because from a clinical standpoint, there's nothing more scary than a patient's in a study and posts their results on social media while they're still in a study. And we grimace. We're like, hold on, don't do that. And now we don't know how to react to it. So can't wait to get to the social media
Sure.
piece. Yeah.
Well, and that's a caveat. So at the CRT stage, you need to, for example, when you're onboarding them, if there are clear guidelines that you do not want them posting openly about it,
Just
then
making that clear. Yeah.
get them to buy into that. I'm speaking more of after we're in
After
market,
you're in post market, got it. We're selling and we're
right?
rolling out, ramping up.
But yet, I've also seen examples where social um, campaigns are used to recruit for the study.
Yeah,
And so if somebody knows, they're like, I'm on this Facebook group with a bunch of other people. It's a closed private group, but I found out about your research study. Well, sure. Mention it on that private group that you can't get
right.
to. Get their,
That's
fellow
a
group
great
members
idea.
to
They have
come
those
your way.
advocacy groups, is what I'm thinking of. A lot of them
Exactly.
patient advocacy groups. And this is where, when we at MindRow talk about that cross functional collaboration, at the last company I worked with, we went to our marketing person and said, hey, can we build a clinical trial website by itself with your help? Because you guys are amazing at making everything look great. And it worked out to be really great for enrollment. Yeah, good stuff.
Amazing. Great. So I'm going to
You keep
mention
going.
just for a moment, just because we're going to put a pin in it, but this table that I've got here, this is metrics and different information that you will be getting quantitative data on by putting out this content. So, or even by boosting the content through spending ad dollars to make sure that content gets out there. So just keep in mind when it shows things like how people behave or what audience attributes they have, these are things that you're going to get some information on, and we'll talk about that in a sec.
Perfect.
What I find to be the true value of putting out this content for those different audiences, yes, they're going to walk away and say, those guys are truly helpful. That is wonderful information that can lead to good outcomes. But it also has another purpose.
Mm.
And this involves a fair bit of mapping to do.
Okay.
What we must do is we must think about the entire patient journey or the entire buyer journey, depending on who we're looking at. And we must ask ourselves, what kinds of information do they have at that point in time? And I was saying to Cindy before we started this call, whether you are a career marketer or not, you've been a student of marketing your whole life. And I want you to think for a moment about a major purchase that you have made. So house, car, um, if we even want to, if we don't want to use commercial examples, you can consider life partners. The the point is you went through a fierce decision making process, either singly or in a group, there were specific points in time that someone can actually ascertain by what question, what sub question you were grappling with before you made that big decision to purchase. They can tell where you are in your journey. So, in the example of this GERD situation, they were looking at things like somebody saying, I can't, normally just go on my bike trip. I'm fine, but I've had to make some changes, or I've had to make some dietary changes, or over on the right hand side, I actually have to change locations for where I sleep each night. I got to tilt my mattress up in the middle of my dining room so that I can get through the night without reflux spoiling it. And they map this against the progression of their condition. And so they know where people are at by what they're talking about. That now allows us to start to do segmentation. That segmentation can lead to us deciding what we're going to put in front of that person next. So this is going to change, of course, with the type of offering that you have, product or service, but I want you to think about this like that major life decision that you've made, and whether it was by necessity or something that you were pleasantly looking forward to, a transformation that you were trying to achieve. If you look back, you'll notice you didn't make that overnight. You did it over time. And if the internet, which has a very good memory, can watch what you're doing, it will provide information back to the marketers with which they can indirectly tell where you're at in your decision making process.
I love this. I love the life cycle. Think about the continuum of care of your patient and what the messaging is at each phase, whether it be a healthcare provider, whoever the purchaser is, or the patient. Love it.
And they're not going to be on a page way back at the beginning
Yeah.
if they are imminently making a decision.
Surgical decision. Yeah, they're dropping at a
That's
different point. Yep.
right. And
Makes
and
sense.
that information now becomes something that you can measure. You can say, I'm only measuring those who are near a decision standpoint against others who are near a decision standpoint, and what percent of them actually take that, appointment, who
Beautiful.
set up that consult, do that workup, right? Or if they're a physician or a administrator, decide to go through a demo, decide to get a quote.
Got it.
So that's how you can find the customers, by what problem they have, and it will express differently. But that's something even that search engines can help you with. Why? Because for the last 2 decades, we have all been conditioned to go to Google and others, but primarily Google,
Yeah.
to find out what exists for us. And my goodness, that is a treasure trove of information right there. So I just want to be clear on something here. What I'm showing us, not just the search result ads, but you may think of these as being ones where we can pay to appear. It's called pay per click. So we're showing paid listings for something. And why it matters is we have to get our heads wrapped around the fact that marketing in most fields concerns itself with getting your brand out there, right? If you've got that, better mousetrap than, everybody has ever made, you want to make sure people know that it's your mousetrap. That has limited importance in healthcare. This may have importance to a situation like a corporate buying committee, but it's that one below, and I'm just going to get out of the way. It's called interest based. So if you have created pages on a website, so in the case of GERD, this was the one that was not even on their corporate site. This was on a separate website called GERD Help. And they talked just about the problem on there. Notice that Google gave them a position in the search engine search results, and people who don't necessarily know anything about that particular device will click that link to go get the product. And by so doing, they are telling you they have that problem.
Mm, got it.
So Think about if you have four different kinds of symptoms for a certain condition. Make four different pages.
Mm,
Talk just about that symptom on each page, but understand that if somebody got to that page by typing in something on Google, and we can find out, you know, in anonymized format what they typed, then we can get ourselves some real data about, well, how often does that happen? Oh, what special things do we need to consider when we're trying to get that person to take the next step?
perfect.
I've been talking about it thus far, but now we'll head straight into what you're going to do to analyze this marketing data.
This is the meat.
Yeah. So first off, you were with me on having that website. One thing I want to hasten to add is that website needs to have Google Analytics on it. It's a free tool. Most websites on the internet have it. And I even have something in the takeaway guide to deal with folks who have legal teams who tell them that they, shouldn't have analytics or tracking on their website. So just work with me here. Google Analytics, you're going to be good. It works for most of the internet. It works in places like Europe, so we're good. It does have a few different things around setup that one must keep in mind when doing healthcare marketing. There's something called consent mode, and that is that little box that you see that pops up that says, do you consent to being tracked on this website? You can turn that on, and what it basically means is when it's running, if someone says no, then Google Analytics will forget that they are actually on your
Ah,
website. It will not watch their movements on your site. And you say, well, that's rotten. I'm the whole point of this was to find out who they are. First off, it's not everybody on your website that's going to do that. Secondly, Google, because they're nerdy engineers, have figured out a way how to concoct data. It's called synthetic data. So these are imaginary visitors, but they very much resemble the real visitors who were on your website but said they didn't want to be tracked. And Google gives you enough information that you can model what
oh,
happens on your website, even though some of those users were forgotten by Google. So
interesting.
that's a
Looks like a loophole.
yeah, a little bit. Now, another thing that you must set up when you're creating Google Analytics is you have to know the things in your business that are considered next steps.
Mhm.
These things, they have, in the past, they've been called conversions. Currently, Google calls them key events. Doesn't matter. It's an event, it's something that happens that your visitor causes. And you can definitely tell Google Analytics, in fact, you should, when it happens, because it'll give you beautiful reports to show you where they came from and all sorts of different things that allow you to basically retrace their steps. Now, in healthcare marketing, you're probably going to be showing them a form. And on some websites, when I fill out a form, it comes up with like a second, level of form. First one is maybe what's your name. Next one, it's your email, and then we move on to other things. It's very common for a web coder to build a website where that information simply is sent through the website and the form and thus falls into Google Analytics. Google does not allow that. So it's a fairly straightforward thing to tell your web coder, just don't pass any information that identifies someone and you'll be good.
Got it.
If you're unsure about that, I would be happy on a case by case basis to talk with people about this. If you're doing that, you're basically fine with Google Analytics, GA4 as it's called, because it's the fourth version. There's one other thing that Google Analytics allows to be turned on, and on most websites, it's a handy thing. It allows things like videos to be tracked, more forms to be tracked. And if someone is using a mobile device and then they switch over to their desktop, it allows Google to understand, oh, you're the same person. They call them signals and they call it enhanced measurement. These are things that you really shouldn't turn on unless you've cleared with your legal or regulatory team.
Hmm.
The reason why is that if there was ever any issue and a complaint was put in, Google would wash their hands of it and say, we didn't turn that functionality on. The marketer did. So in places like California or the European Union, those customers know enough to not turn that on with Google Analytics and everything is fine. So I'm just going to urge you to think about whether or not this is something that, let's say you have a digital health tool and you're, receiving information from people. Does the terms of use or the privacy statement for that application tell them this kind of information is going to be tracked? Well, just sew that up. Make sure that you have that covered because Google will not admit that it was their fault. They will point,
Ah,
they will point the finger at you and say it was your fault that you breached your terms of service.
got it. Well, if you're a marketer today and you don't know the answer to that question, go find out.
Go find out.
Yeah, ask
Now,
that question internally.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now the glass is kind of. I realize I've kind of said it's half empty. Let me get you to the next part here of
yeah, that'd be
kind of
great.
when when they've gotten through your website, and we're now talking about marketing data that is sitting on your marketing automation platform, your email list, your CRM. What are you able to work with? And I just want to help us relax a little bit and understand that when we talk about health information, we talk about HIPAA, there is no single black or white definition for this data. It's on a spectrum. So that's why I've got these boxes in this table here. There's, information by which we can understand someone roughly, a group of people. Um, if you're selling B2B, you can capture their company's information, company email. These are totally fine. As you move more into that personal data and then personally identifiable data, and then you can even think of personally identifiable healthcare data as being smallest group, you just need to understand how far can I go before I'm in hot water.
Uh,
And you may have to pull back a little bit and you can say, okay, well, in another industry, I could drop cookies on. Oh, I can't drop cookies here. Or in another industry, oh, I could track their device. Oh, I can't track their device here. So remember that balance of compliance versus results. So let's talk for a second about how results are impacted when I can't have all of that personal information. One is that if I'm running ads, there is a limit to knowing whether that ad resulted in them becoming a buyer or user. This is called attribution modeling. And it's a topic unto itself, but trust me, the information that you're going to get is going to be limited there. In basic terms, it would be like imagining that you sat down to a big Thanksgiving dinner. Attribution is like trying to figure out after you are completely full and you ate one of everything, what, attribution is asking the question, was there one main piece of that meal that actually made you full?
mm,
I think it's kind of a philosophical debate. I'm not sure it matters. And it definitely doesn't matter in healthcare marketing. So what I'm telling you is you won't know so much. You won't know the exact ROI of a meta ad that you paid for to get into someone's mind because you are not allowed to track that person down to a person along with every other thing that you did to that person
ah,
at an individual
fascinating.
level.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So you're giving up a little, and I'm telling you, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world because what we need to really keep in mind is we have to aggregate data. We have to think bigger. We have to think over a longer time frame when we're calculating this kind of ROI, right? Take all your channels together, take all of the different touch points that you have, and then plug numbers in on here's how much I spent, here's how much I brought in, what's my revenue brought in minus what I spent divided by the revenue. And that's an ROI calculation. So you can still get there, but not every part of it could have been trackable.
Got it.
Okay.
All right.
Um, and then this is an important one. We don't want to abuse their customer data. So if you needed another reason, besides the fact that I've told you you can still get your ROI, your return on investment, imagine that you don't need to watch a person as they roam all over the internet to find out if they actually want to come back to you and buy your product or consume your service. What you can do is you can simply kind of think of groupings. Like imagine these, imagine that we're looking at the different touch points that we have with a whole group of customers, not a single customer. We will notice patterns. Just as I know your eye right now is noticing the greens are larger than the reds are larger than the yellow, and they all seem to be, moving at different stages towards the center of this target area. So if you think of that, like how you will attract customers to you, you can still work at this higher pattern level, not the individual, I'm watching everybody under a microscope, big brother kind of way. So that's what I want us to try and keep as our focus. The one part that we might be able to do, and this was an analysis that was done that takes some of that and does try to say, okay, well, which happened first? They were looking at information about the problem. Okay, so maybe they're really early. Maybe they're not even diagnosed. And then we got to a second touch. Well, maybe they're post-diagnosis because we notice that a bunch of people are also now typing into Google, but they're typing in a diagnosis term. Or if they're a buyer, they are doing a your brand versus the competitor's brand search. When we get down to these, and then finally we get down to third touch, where maybe they're asking about how do I go for the workup? What does the reimbursement look like? We can just kind of infer and take this, all these little funnels that we're putting out there, and we can try and figure out how these landing page visits, these form fills, these phone qualifications that we do, in the case of what happened with GERD was they brought it down into eventually saying, well, how many times did they look up a physician? How many times did they end up at a consult? How many times did that result in a procedure? And you can see with that like 100 to 10 to 1, you can get these funnel metrics, which will give you a model to say, well, if I go to the board, I go to management, and I say, for next quarter, for next year, I want to have this much, I can give a rough approximation of what I will be able to get for that.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm going to move along just for time. We have uh, now a chance to ask ourselves, what skills are we using as we're making this entire marketing system work? First off, I know that we've been using our regulatory understanding, and you really need to wrap your mind around that. Go for coffee with the people in compliance. Get them to, tell you what the real concerns are. This may be a step beyond what you get in the memo. Okay?
Right.
It's getting the why behind the what. They will say, here's what you can and can't do. Try to find out the why.
Oh, I
Because
love that.
they
Yeah.
can't foresee necessarily the kind of marketing campaigns that you're going to do. So you need to understand that that's just a starting point. All marketers, I believe, are storytellers.
Mm,
And so do not lose sight of the fact that you are trying to help your own internal decision makers.
mm.
You're trying to help them understand. They'll look at numbers, they'll look probably at dashboards, they'll look until their eyelids droop. if you only show them numbers.
Mm.
You must also tell them, just like I showed you at the beginning, the photo of the GERD patient who was, wheelchair bound because of her condition and had to go to Disneyland with her daughter in a wheelchair, right? She was able to have a happy ever after ending where after the procedure, she was fully mobile, fully able to return to a regular life. These are the kinds of stories that you can help your decision makers understand that there are people behind the numbers.
Love it.
It will help you figure out also how to market better. You can say, we tried three things and we noticed number one and number two totally flopped. But our third variant, we hit a nerve there. We did something right. Here's an example of a person that reacted to that. Or here's a persona, even just a construct person that we have made that illustrates how that third variant worked for us. Now let's double down on that one. Of course, you're going to need soft skills. I'm going to suggest that, again, not only having coffees with compliance, but with legal, with your product team and with IT. Help these people understand that you are not someone who is trying to wreak havoc with their lives, but you are helping to bring in the one thing that provides for all of us revenue. Okay? You are revenue focused, and that should align you with them. And again, the soft skills of being able to see things from the other person's side will serve you well. And then I just can't leave the fact that there is some data that we're getting into, and you need to make sure that you upskill in data literacy. If you aren't comfortable with spreadsheets, if you aren't comfortable with looking at distributions and percentages and pivoting values and bringing things through into understanding how one thing is correlated to another thing, get yourself some good tools or even YouTube your way to finding out how to do those things, because you will need to constantly have a curiosity, which then turns into basically ingenuity, right? You're
Mm.
going to get these ideas once you start seeing patterns in the data, and its ingenuity is going to pop out of your mind. You're going to think up new ways that work within the constraints that can help you market to your audience. And that is perhaps one of the most important things that I'd like you to leave you with, is understanding that you have campaigns that you don't even know you can pull off. But if you go through the things that we've talked about here, I guarantee it, you will think of them and you will be able to deploy them and you will be able to see success out of them. Success not only for your company, but also it'll help your career.
We have a question that is so timely. It says, where can I go to learn more about data literacy? Are there keywords I should search for?
Yeah, so start with things like, because there's data of all types. So I'm going to narrow you down to marketing, and I'm going to say, marketing data analysis. Start with a search
Love it.
like that
Okay.
and start, and then we're down into the tools. And probably the one that you'll start with is a spreadsheet. So Google Sheets, Excel, throw those terms together. You'll be able to go to town on that stuff. This brings us to what we've learned.
Okay.
Folks, we are through it now. And just to recap some of the things we've said, I talked about the balance. I think I've talked about how search and social, when you're thinking of channels, they're they both rely on content, but they're a little bit different. Sometimes it's your content, sometimes it's your user's content. Analytics, do go get under the hood of that, find out, how it is set up, make sure that it's got privacy in mind, that it jives with what your company is already committing to, and don't be afraid to analyze the information. You have some information, some is better than none. Once you possess that information, you can act on it. And I'm going to just draw you back to those capital M marketing skills, which I think of as having a passion for your customer and how you're helping them, Remember, you're providing some good compared to someone else who's just selling more stuff. You actually are helping to realize important wellness outcomes. And as a marketer, a capital M marketer, you already have the tools in the toolbox to do this. Yeah, some of them need to be sharpened at various points in time, but if you stay centered on how you provide marketing to your audience, thinking as if you are marketing to each individual out there, you can't go wrong.
Well, yeah, I love this presentation. Thank you so much, Glenn. Going through the theme in there was interesting to me when I think about marketing. Just think of if somebody comes out of college and they go into marketing for a toy manufacturer. What a different approach. It's kind of fun, but that product's going to be in a landfill in 5 years from now when you're done with it. What a great way to give back is marketing for healthcare, leaning in a space, and with that you wear a little bit different hat. It's an
Yeah,
education, which you don't get with a consumer good in a lot of ways, where there's a lot of and I'm trying to think of the best word for it. It's educating the patient without expecting anything back. So there's some humanitarian connection of like, how do we build integrity and ethics where patients can come to our website and learn, or come to a page we've built to be the single source of truth. And I love that about healthcare. And I love that about marketers. When those that I've worked with in healthcare over the 30 years, they just see it differently. There's a compassionate, I want to give back and help educate. Because a lot of times in our healthcare system today, you're with a physician and you don't get a lot of the information. It is up to them to walk out of their room and go to the internet. And they're hoping when they're doing your query that they're hitting on honest, true, single source things that are leading them to what are my options. And I guess putting on that hat and teaching, having marketing folks teach upwards. I always say managing up sometimes can be difficult. It's like managing up and your cross functional partners is that we're all in this together. I want to put our best foot forward, but some of what we do, we may not be an ROI. Maybe it's we're just building to be a brand to be trusted. And then when they get to the right treatment point, hey, we're leaning in, we've got you. Here's what we offer, and how does it compare to what else is out there in the marketplace? Just a different mindset. I'm just blown away. Super cool. Super cool. So, do you want to tell us
amazing.
about your giveaway? I would love to know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have for sure. I have tried to design a what I call a reg compliant marketing field list. So I know the Mind Grow folks will send that out, and it is to me. I've simply outlined on one column. Here's a bunch of challenges that you can have. On the other column, here's some tactics that, even though it's perhaps a little bit more work than that toy maker marketer will have, that you still can get most of the way there in fulfilling what you need to do despite the constraint. So don't look at constraints as like a brick wall. Look at them more like a hurdle that you need to get over.
Got it. I love that. Well, excellent. We do have three questions. I'm not going to go through them now because just to be cautious of time, because sometimes they'll go off. So what I'd like to do is, instead of send them to you in writing, have you write them back, give us answers, and we will share them with the video as well. So everybody gets that. Thank you, Glenn, for sharing your knowledge base. I can see us next year circling back with you and like, hey, let's dig a bit deeper. Let's take it to the next level. Thank you. I was hoping you'd put up the slide. Super important. I immediately, when I met Glenn, I put him in my phone. Like I said, he's on a bat phone now. So poor Glenn, he's never gonna not know me now from here on out. He made it all the way to his life till this. So I
So
would suggest, yeah,
yeah, and just like Cindy has, she's got a way of contacting me. Now you also have a way of
please
contacting me.
do.
So if you're inclined to reach out on a social network, or you do want to check out a podcast where I talk about all of this stuff, go ahead and use the links available there.
So Funnel Reboot, real quick, what is that? And I've
Yeah.
listened to a couple of them. Do you want to give a 2 minute pitch on Funnel Reboot?
Oh, I'll take a 10-second pitch.
Okay.
So, Final Reboot is a podcast for analytically minded marketers. And I cover not just MedTech, but I do cover other industries where we're at the deep end of the pool and we're figuring out how we use the complex digital marketing tools that we have to see how our marketing's doing it. And when we can see how it's doing, we're getting insights into our customers. And when we get insights into our customers, we're figuring out how to market to them even better. So it's important that we constantly, like I say, reboot ourselves, keep improving what we understand about our marketing so that we can do it better.
I love that. I love it. It's right in your name. Reboot. Don't get old and stale. What worked yesterday may not work going forward. Be
Guaranteed.
fresh. Yeah. Think about that. Well, thank you, Glenn. For everybody who joined us today, thank you for taking time out of your day. If you weren't able to join us, but you registered, you will get this video link, and we ask that you share it with everybody in your network. It is free to watch the podcast or the webinar. I'm talking about his podcast. So free to watch the webinar and get the resources. We want to expand this out as much as possible. And I want to give a quick plug. Mindgrove is launching at the end of the summer an introduction to medical device or MedTech suite of products. It's 8 hours of training. It will launch by the end of September. But what's super exciting is the very first module called MedTech 100. It's the introduction. What is MedTech? That is actually going to go live at the end of July. So if you'll get in contact with me by being a registered participant for any of our webinars, we will send you a 100% discount so you can watch that first beak wetter, so you can see what is it like to go through training with Mindgrove. Super excited about it. We're just 2 weeks away and it's been a year in the making, so we can't thank you enough. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. So thank you, Glenn, so much for being here.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.